Honestly, yes. The Sunderland Club present club have been running it since 1981, and it built it up to the status it is now. And this was just put on us 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, to alleviate some of the problems that were between the government and the ACU at the time. So they thought it was a good idea, and we went along with it, and we subsequently have reverting back now to the status quo. I don't think the fans will notice anything. The competitors very little, I imagine. Well, I don't think a lot of them really noticed that there was a change prior, from 2022. But it's good to be able to revert back to being organisers, so everything comes under our control. And we're looking forward to picking up where we left off. Honestly, yes. The present club have been running it since 1981, and it built it up to the status it is now. And this was just put on us 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, to alleviate some of the problems that were between the government and the ACU at the time. So they thought it was a good idea, and we went along with it, and we subsequently have reverting back now to the status quo, and which is a benefit for everybody. Just general circumstances, the way the races are going, and we're still doing a lot of the work for them. Some of the work have been taken off us and contracted out to various companies over here, which we're happy with and continuing with them. So there's no loss of earnings by those companies. So that's one thing to alleviate out of it. But we were one big happy family, and we've been treated as that. And 3 people that were brought in by the ACU, the clerk of the course, after Peter Oates retired, clerk of the course Giles Ollie, and his deputy Andy Brown, and event safety officer Tony McBride. They are happy, and they are joining us and becoming part of the family now, which they're happy to do, and they say they're proud to be part of our organisation. No changes there at all. It was business as usual, as I would say. We're complying with all the new regulations that come out and what we have to do, and everything's in place and being put in place for the racing this year. So locally based now again, so there's instant contact with us again, and for competitors and the fans as well. You can get in touch with us. We have an extensive media set up now with the own website, and our social media is being expanded all the time. Keep up with modern technology.
Nassau Road to shut for work. A busy road in the north of the island will close this week. Nassau Road in Brign will shut from Grenaby Road to Brign Road. It'll close from 8 a.m. on Monday, February 3rd until 4:30 p.m. on Friday, February 14. Farmers keen to see stronger legislation to protect livestock from dog worrying. For the past maybe 3 or 4 years now, as part of the community team I work on, I've been watching and monitoring patterns of this particular issue, working in conjunction with NFU farmers and also DEFRA to try and find out what patterns are on, what we can do working together to try and stop and reduce it. Just your dog being in a field around the sheep when they're in lamb can cause them to be stressed. Sheep will gather together if they're stressed in a huddle, and they can actually suffocate from doing so. I mean, there's loads of things it can cause problems with. It doesn't have to be your dog attacking and harming them. Even the presence of a dog in a field where sheep are in lamb can cause massive issues for the sheep and their unborn lambs.
And often what we see is people taking to social media and sharing the aftermath of an incident like this. In terms of from the police's perspective, do you think that, every time that this is happening, it is actually reported to you?
I think there's an under-reporting. We're trying to find out the reasons why. I think we can surmise a few of them. Perhaps there's frustration in what happens when it is reported. Perhaps actually it takes a lot of time for the farmers to make reports when they are busy. It's their busiest time of year. There's loads of little reasons behind it. But what we say, and I think NFU would repeat it, is we need to know when these issues are happening, because without that we can't look at patterns. So if we have patterns where they are, we can see if it's the same dog, the same owners. We can see if there's a weakness in the land or the fences surrounding it, and then we get DEFRA or the farmers involved. So if we know where they are, we can start seeing if there's an issue and try and do something together to solve it.
Ultimately, in these situations, the farmers, the landowners do have rights, don't they?
Indeed. I mean, the Dogs Act legislation covers it. We'll be putting something on our social media as we do every year, and we'll highlight this. We'll get people to see it because it is really simple, and we all have a part to play in it. The effects of this is massive. The ripple effect just goes quite far. I mean, even down to the pictures that are shared on social media, they are shocking and they're awful. And some people might see them, they shouldn't. But, we all need to realise that this is happening and take the steps that we need to help it. The farmers lose money. The farmers also, they're not just a product to them. They do care about the animals that they're raising. So they've got that emotional tie to them. There is financial, of course there's financial. The effect of it goes far. And the simple thing is just keep your dog in a lead. And if it's an area where it shouldn't be, then don't go into it.
And for the dog owners themselves, I mean, ultimately they could potentially lose their own animal if they are found to be on the land and worrying the sheep.
They can, and it still shocks people to this day. And the bare bones of it is lawfully a farmer can shoot to kill an animal on their field if they reasonably believe they are worrying livestock. It's all there in the Act because it shouldn't take place, and they need to have some protection to protect their animals, which is what they make their money from, and also provide us, the island, with some food or whatever it is, but they need to be able to protect them. So the be-all and end-all is your dog could be shot
in the Manx countryside.
I think it's know your dog and know where you are. If you know your dog and you can truly say that your dog is and can be under control at all times, okay. But actually, we don't always know our dog. We don't know what's going to influence it at 1 minute to the next. So keep them on lead. The lead can be long, but keep them on a lead, and then they're completely under control and you're protecting your animal and also the farmers, the livelihood and the animals. I know my dogs, I can trust them a certain amount, but I don't know them that well enough and I don't know them in every situation. Just keep them on a lead. It's really simple.
We're doing a lot of education work around the Countryside Code with kids in primary school. We'd love to get in and talk a bit more to secondary school students about what we do as well. Another strand of this is every year now we will do a survey with farmers along with the National Sheep Association just to assess the impacts it's having, whether there's an increase, how it's being reported, how the police are responding to that those reports. We do get a lot of challenges all year round. It is very much a problem, but we are talking with the animal health team at the moment, and we very much want to push for a change in legislation so that we can have a lot more emphasis on the animal welfare needs when it comes to livestock worrying. We've all seen a bit of footage here, there and everywhere on YouTube where it's been made into a bit of a comedy. That is very disturbing for us because I know plenty of farmers. I'm from a farm myself. We've all experienced it. It's pretty horrific. It's a horrific thing to put livestock through. It's a horrific thing to put farmers through, and it's completely unnecessary. All people need to do is put their dog on a lead. Keep it under control, put it on a lead. And we're trying really hard both to get that education across to people, but also to make sure that we've got more robust legislation so that those that don't pay attention to that will get, they will get punished for it, and quite rightly so in our eyes.
Castletown commissioners to lobby government about Castle Rushen High School.
Well, this is the second motion that I've put out in relation to Castle Rushen High School. The first one was Mr. Brign. It's absolutely crucial that Castletown has access to the land at the back of the school, as it's down as future-proof for housing land and potentially up to 400 houses. Castletown's needed houses for 40 years and it hasn't developed, so it's fallen aside as a service town compared to the other regional towns on the island such as Ramsey and Peel. And there's a chance now, and planning are aware of this because it's been written in officers' reports, of a hierarchical flip with Ballasalla. And then once Ballasalla becomes bigger than Castletown as a village compared to a service town, then they can justify shops and all sorts then, like the Crosby Co-op. It's absolutely crucial that Castletown, it's not just about Castle Rushen High School, it's got so much more implications for the future of Castletown, because once access is gone, then it's done forever. It's landlocked or it's tied off because Castletown can't build in many directions because it's got an airport and it's got the sea. So it's limited as to where it can go, and this is the third education minister that I've spoken to now and engaged on this about the importance of holistically the impact this will have on the town. Fourth education minister, and it was smoke and mirrors with Mr. Brign. Mr. Allinson agreed with me about the importance holistically, and then Julie Edge and Daphne Kane all seem to just toe some party line where it's smoke and mirrors and you can't get an answer out of them. Are the Department of Education engaging with planning and economic development to establish the importance for the town holistically instead of just the school? No, I don't think they are.
Are you aware that the land that did have Buchan School on it has been bought by Hartford Homes, therefore maybe building more houses for the town? And what would you say to that?
Well, it's a perfect site for housing, but that's always been in the plan potentially. But Castletown has fallen so far behind that whereas I think it was the 2009 Southern Plan talks about Castletown needing 400 houses. Well, since that time, how many houses have been built in Ramsey, Peel, Port Erin? Hundreds. So Castletown, yes, another 100 houses on that site is ideal, but it still needs 400 houses on top of that. So we're falling massively behind. Ramsey's bigger than Port Erin and Castletown together. This is supposed to be a service town, and it was the service town for the south. But you'd have to say now we're falling behind Port Erin, aren't we? Once you've got the biggest supermarket in the south with Port Erin Tesco, that's where people go.
New shopfront for Costa? A coffee shop in the island's capital could be getting a facelift if planners approve. Douglas-based Fancy A Coffee Limited has applied for planning permission to change the front of Costa on Strand Street. In its application, the company says it would make minor changes to the shopfront but leave the interior as it is. It adds it's investing up to £30,000 in the project, which it claims will improve the look of the area.
Work will start next week to make toilets at Nobles Hospital more accessible. Nobles Hospital is making its toilets more accessible. Work will start next week to make the disabled bathrooms on the ground floor to create new changing places. The facilities will be larger and will have a changing bench and hoist which is designed to support disabled people who need assistance. The work will start on Monday, February 10th and be complete on Friday, March 7th.
Work will start next week to make toilets at Nobles Hospital more accessible. Will a TT documentary bring a boost in TT visitor numbers this year? The Department for Enterprise says it thinks so, and wants to keep accommodating guests in cabins on the former Isle of Man prison site on Victoria Road in Douglas. In its application, it says the Duke TT Village would run for the next 3 years, operated by Duke Marketing. And it adds the facility has parking for 35 vehicles and 100 motorbikes.
Changes to services are not the same as costs cuts.
Supplementary question, Ms. Farragut.
Goodbye, Lord. And thanks to the Minister for that statement and information this morning. The Minister said in the past that she would look at everything else before making any cuts, that every avenue would be exhausted. Does the fact that she supported these cuts mean that that's the case, all avenues to save money have been exhausted? And does that mean that more cuts are likely and that we're likely to see that cost-saving measure of elective surgery being cut, reimposed in future? And if so, can she commit to keeping honourable colleagues and the public informed in future? Thank you.
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the Department supports the review of the care that is delivered off-island, mainly because that it's essential to ensure that our patients are both able to receive care here on island, and if that's appropriate, but will also ensure that people do not suffer the inconvenience of journeys to the UK for appointments which could be delivered in another way, either such as virtually, as I mentioned in my speech, or in my statement, or are unnecessary. We believe that reshaping the way appointments are delivered is a good basis for reform by having more oversight and control of care that is delivered off-island. That is good for patients, but also helps the cost, given the increase of the overall cost of off-island care over the recent years. In answer to the honourable questioner, will there be further cuts or reduction? I would call. As honourable members are aware, the budget has not been approved, and the work to deliver the mandate and operating plan is still ongoing, as I said in my statement. In order to deliver within the budget, we need to look at how we deliver our services to ensure that they are efficient and sustainable for the future, and this work is still ongoing. But what we have to be clear on to the public is that changes to services are not the same as reductions or cuts, and to confuse the matters is irresponsible. For example, we have been open that we want to see services moved out of the hospital where safe and appropriate to do so that patients can receive services in their community. This is a change to service delivery, but is seeking to provide to improve patient services and manage demand within the hospital. I can confirm, and as I said in my opening statement, I have committed to keeping honourable members completely updated on anything further going forward with to do with the 25-26, the operational plan and the mandate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.